Hello and welcome to the second episode of this podcast. My name is Anne Westwards and I'm going to share some of the lessons with you that I learned during my bicycle expedition that led me for a year and a half alone through Asia and the Middle East with my bicycle Emily here. Today I'm going to talk to you about abundance. And this may strike you as a strange topic these days, because we are talking about lack the whole time. We're talking about the lack of intensity care unit beds. We're also talking about the lack of the occasional package of noodles that we would like to buy, which we can't find in the supermarket right now, or the lack of toilet paper. And really what I would like to invite you to join me for is a different state of mind. So we are trained or we're used to thinking from a state of mind which I call lack. So we compare all the time, compare our achievements, our salary, our car. Well, I don't have a car, so I would compare bicycles maybe to those that others have. And you see, oh, somebody else has more. Then we take this one step further and compare our personal development maybe, saying, oh, well, this person is so much more spiritually advanced, this person is so much calmer than I am. We are constantly nourishing this thought of there's lack. And it makes a huge difference to change the state to a state of abundance. And nothing in the outside world has to change for that. That's the beauty of it. So I learned this in a very radical way when I returned from my bicycle expedition. So I was used to just owning 2 sets of clothing, one for cycling, one for sleeping. And then different layers so I could adjust to the temperature range from minus 25 to plus 40, 45 degrees Celsius. But essentially, I didn't have to make a decision in the morning of what to wear. I would just change from my more or less clean sleeping clothes to my cycling clothes. That's it. I owned 1 pair of most things. A couple of things I had twice with me. 2 sports bras, for example. And I did not feel I lacked anything at all during all this time. I slept mostly in my tent, which I loved and still love. And everything I owned, I carried with me. And I never felt that I was missing anything. I didn't have ebooks or audiobooks or podcasts that I had downloaded. I had no music with me. Nothing of that mattered to me during this trip. And also the food that I had with me. I mean, I had enough. Water, in terms of water, I knew I needed water every at least 4 days. Or if not, I could prepare for longer stretches. But then I would really need to prepare. But in terms of food, I was certain for most of the time that I could cope well for at least 2 weeks without any problems. What did I have with me? Essentially oats and nuts and dried fruit. In case I could secure them somewhere at the bazaar. Other than that, a little bit of security cache of food, so power bars and some fish oil if the worst came to the worst. And then maybe I was lucky and I actually managed to get some fresh fruit somewhere, some apple or an orange. And that was it. For the worst case, I still had vitamin C powder and milk powder and protein powder, but you can go for a very, very, very long time with that while actually doing physical work. In that case, getting a fully loaded bicycle with a lot of spare parts, tools, and so on and so forth. So a heavy bicycle over some of the highest mountain passes of the world. If you're at home right now and we're working remotely from home, taking care of our children at home, we don't actually do physical hard work the entire time. So I'm very certain that we can cope with a lot less nutrition than I had with me for the cycling expedition. So from that perspective, when I came back to Berlin, I looked around me and I couldn't believe this luxury. I back then I was absolutely enamored with, and still am, with the possibility that I could take a shower whenever I wanted, and even with hot water. I just love taking hot showers. Don't get me wrong, I don't take showers all the time. It's just that having the ability to wash myself whenever I wanted, and having running water for that, clean running water, was absolute bliss. Like the excitement wore off, but it took actually more than a year for the excitement to wear off even a little bit. And now, sometimes even nowadays, I switch on the faucet, and I'm fascinated that I actually get clean water. If you look further around in our apartments, we have heating, which works normally. Sometimes it breaks, but which is, yeah, I mean, I've been to mountain villages where people, I mean, normally they just use wood to fire their ovens, and if they run out of wood, well, they'll have to get an extra blanket. So that's a huge luxury. And it just continues and continues with electricity, which, I mean, during my bicycle expedition, I generated power with my bike. And then sometimes I would even find Wi-Fi. I mean, it was very rarely. That's why I blogged very rarely during this year and a half. But I was fascinated that all of a sudden I could connect to the outside world. We take so many things for given here in this Western society that we forget all the abundance we have around us. So, I mean, changing this perspective, and most of all, which, yeah, I mean, right now we realize how important it is our health system. We have access to well-trained doctors. We have access to medication. I spend a considerable amount of time in regions which are so remote that when I came into the village and somebody asked me in, they were so kind to share their food with me and let me sleep somewhere indoors where it was warm when a snowstorm was raging outside. I was incredibly grateful for that. So when I asked, normally I try to give something back. So, I look around and try to observe if there's something where I can help. And oftentimes people asked me if I had medication for an injury they got while cutting wood, for example. So they had this elbow or this knee that really hurt. So I was a rolling pharmacy, a pharmacy on wheels, so to speak, because these people would not have a chance to see a doctor. There was no doctor. There was no pharmacy. And they very rarely could take the time off and make the effort to actually travel down for a couple of days to a larger village where maybe they could see a doctor. So essentially during most of my trip, it wasn't actually ill except for one time. So all the medication that I brought with me, most of it I actually gave away. I mean, I hope they all understood the description that I gave, sometimes drawing pictures, playing pantomime to make them understand that, just take it in the morning, in the evening. And then no, please don't give it to the toddler. I know the child is in pain because the teeth are growing, but this is like painkillers are not for little children. So I'm just trying to get to you that there is enough. We live in abundance here. And if we look at people who buy supplies for a year in supermarkets, or so at least it seems, they obviously are in a state of lack. They believe there's not enough and completely forget there is enough, in particular if we share. That's another huge lesson that I learned. So in terms of food, even right now, if I look at the supplies that I have just in my kitchen, I don't have much much in terms of supplies. It's going to last at least for one quarantine in case I get sick. What was really heartwarming for me was seeing how people who were actually and really poor, they're, in my perception at least, more often in the state of abundance than those people who actually have a lot. So I still very fondly remember the moment when I cycled into a little village in the Pamir Mountains in Tajikistan. And I had enough food for the evening, so I would have been fine, but I was invited in by a family. And I offered them, I think I still had some bread from the last village, and I had some nuts. And they said, no, that's fine. Have some rice. And they actually, their dinner, and that's the case for many people in this region, their dinner consisted of rice. Full stop. They only had rice. Nothing else. So they, without thinking twice about this, they had cooked rice for dinner for the family. And then they just made each portion a little bit smaller, so they had enough to spare to offer me some rice as well. And they were actually grateful or grateful is the wrong word. They seemed genuinely happy that they could offer something to a guest. And they didn't think from a state of lack. They go, oh, well, no, there's enough. So in the morning, breakfast would only consist of butter tea. So something with salted butter tea is very typical for this region. So it's literally just tea with a bit of butter. So you get some nourishment and some salt. And maybe also some bread. And that's it. And those are the two meals that there are each day. And I learned a lot from these very humble people, and I think we all can, in terms of thinking from a state of abundance and acting from this state instead of thinking from a state of lack, because it radically changes our behavior towards others and towards the world. So I hope that I could share something that's of value for you. If you would like, feel free to share in the comments below what your experience is with being in a state of lack or being in a state of abundance. I mean, obviously, I am not always in a state of abundance either. I still have moments when I think from a state of lack, but it's always good to catch yourself and like, okay, interesting. So now I'm in a state of lack. How can I change my perspective and be in a state of abundance? So yeah, I'm looking forward to hear from you, to read your comments. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you again soon. Stay healthy. Bye.